hello, real people. This is the first time for nearly 18 months, I think, that I've been out and spoken to real people in a real room full of people actually presiding over the proceedings that we're going to deliver today. I find it strange and kind of interesting as a leader of a council to come out in a week where the country's allegedly been set free from things that we allegedly didn't agree to in the first place, in a situation where we were already doing a better job locally when we were running what was happening locally. So clearly somebody's read our report and thought we won't be doing anything they've got in there because we still like to do it from the centre. There's a bunch of slides that are going to come up that Matthew's going to deal for me, but I'm not going to read because you're all cleverer than I am and I don't need to read things to you. And I've got a script that Mo's carefully crafted, which those of you who know me know that I'm too stupid to be able to stick to. And being honest, it's pointless sticking to a script. The agenda that we're on is moving at an hourly pace. Anything that we wrote yesterday would be out of date today. And we've seen that with the devolution decisions that have been made by the Secretary of State for areas that submitted them. 8 bids, 3 successful outcomes for some people's view, but not for all of the people in the places that put the bids in. We don't think, and the evidence we were given doesn't think, that it should be in the gift of somebody in Whitehall or Westminster to determine our governance structures. So one of the slides that talks about governance structure up there somewhere, that's where we're at with that. Why do we have to get somebody in Whitehall or Westminster determining what our outcomes should be for us at a local level? We're all better placed as local politicians to determine that outcome. We're doing this live from Manchester today, which is a fantastic city that couldn't have been built without local people doing local governance. It exists today and survives well today because of a fantastic local council, Richard Leese, great leader. But somebody decided that they needed an elected mayor over the top, Andy Burnham, who I quite like on a personal level, and he is really good. But Richard was quite capable of running a good Manchester. He didn't need for somebody else to be layered in over the top of him. And to be fair, a couple of months ago, there might be somebody in Whitehall and Westminster regretting the layering in of somebody else over the top of that. So perhaps they are learning a little bit from their own previous mistakes. But as I said earlier, if we'd written where we were now on slides, and I should have stuck to them, but I can't, the world is different. So last week, Rob Jenrick put out a letter, again, putting Devo back on the table. And I think it's a much more measured proposition, and one that actually does have reflection on what people want locally for the shires, which is not the same as an urban model. So at least there's some recognition of moving away from a central government knows best and dictating all of the terms and conditions. But that still won't give local politicians the ability to craft a deal for services in their place, because it won't give real devolution. Because if I'm the leader of my place, I should control all of the public sector delivery vehicles in there. So health should sit underneath local accountable politicians. There's a slide up there somewhere that says that. I'm going to go right off message here. There's a bill going through Parliament at the moment. It's called the Environment Bill. Anybody who reads that and then says central government knows best needs to get their brain sorted out. Basically, local government, if that bill gets assent through Parliament and they act what they say they're going to do, we will become nothing more than a national delivery arm for emptying the dustbins. They will tell us when we can empty the dustbins, how we should empty the dustbins. The only thing that you'll have control over at a local level will be the colour that the dustbins actually are. I didn't get elected to do that. If we end up with a nationally prescribed waste service, that will probably be the end of me being a local politician. Because something as intrinsic to the whole community about picking up the rubbish isn't something that people in Whitehall and Westminster know best for. And one of the arguments that was put forward last week for doing that was, I find it very difficult. When I come to my flat in London, they have one system for emptying the dustbins and the recycling. And when I go back to my house in the constituency, they have a different system for emptying the dustbins. I'm not very bright, but I think the vast majority of the people of this country only live in one house. And so long as their council has communicated with them properly the way the refuse needs to be collected and the reasons behind it, I think we're probably best placed to do it, not somebody in Whitehall and Westminster, who didn't even bother to turn up to do the stuff. You know? There's a brilliant example of that for how they are operating. So we can't do virtual meetings anymore in local government because the law doesn't allow it. Why do we need a law to allow us to meet virtually if it works for us in the places we're looking after? Parliament meets virtually. People can vote. I was in a meeting the other day on Zoom and voting in Parliament. That can't be right. They can't have a system for national governance that works for them in a way that is COVID compliant, and God knows we all want to be COVID compliant, and then tell us we have to go and spend extra taxpayers' money to hire bigger venues because we actually have to meet in public so the public can see us doing it. I know, sorry, Paul, I'm not sticking to any of the slides and script that you put up, but I'm going to shut up now. But first, before I do, I want to thank everybody who's actually given us the evidence to build the report on, because without people delivering the evidence, we would have just been a bunch of opinionated people. And the evidence hasn't changed that because we are still opinionated people. But we had some rational reasons for coming up to the conclusions that we've come up with. And so I'd like to thank the people who did that. Paul's already thanked the APSE team, who have been brilliant. I don't know how they've managed to shepherd such a strange bunch of people to get into a report stage. And because he can't thank himself, I kind of need to thank Paul for sticking with this. This was a brave piece of work for APSE to take on, and it was timely, and COVID could have been a good place to say, oh no, we had this brilliant idea, but this disease is out there and we're not going to do it. But they stuck with it. And I think those people who have read the report from cover to cover, you might not like some of the pictures in there. But I can't use the 20-year lucky photograph for me. That's why I don't look as young in the photograph. I do look as young in the photograph. I was told today I look much older than my photograph. It's because I am 20 years much older than that photograph. Like all local politicians, you use the one that gets you elected, and that one got me elected, so I kind of leave it there. Yeah. And it wasn't 36 years ago, Jesus. And just as a kind of as a visual thing about why we need to do local stuff, John and I are probably a great example. We are massively different. We run councils in a massively different way. And if I take my jacket off, you'll see the only difference in John and I, kind of from the waist up, is the colour of our ties. And that is about the same for most of what we do locally. Most of what we do at a local level isn't tribal, it isn't party-based, it's what we do best for the communities that we serve, which is why this report is timely and why it is important that the central government actually takes note of what's been written in there and starts to move in a direction that gives us greater local accountability for the services that affect the people that we all look after. And thank you very much.